want to state some general guidelines before we get started. I will ask the room to silence all mobile devices. I will ask everyone who wishes to speak today to come to the lectern. Exhibits will be delivered to council as they are presented. Anyone who has a conflict at this time about the property in question, now's the time for disclosure. Those who were previously sworn in will remain so, and those who were not must come forward at the appropriate time to be sworn in by the town clerk. Back in December, each side was given an initial 15 minutes to make their case and 5 minutes for a rebuttal. As I understand, we have exhausted those time limits. Moving forward for time limits, I will ask the council to make a motion and vote to extend the time limits for both the applicant and the opposition to 10 minutes.
Make a motion.
Is there a second?
Second.
There's a second. Discussion?
Yeah, now what are we doing here exactly? Tell me. What?
Well, what we're doing now is we're just,
I mean, you had a motion and a second about.
for about the minutes. I
Okay.
mean, the number of minutes goes, we each gave them 15 minutes
Right.
at the December meeting.
Right.
They have both exhausted those 15 minutes. So to allow us to go forward, we're gonna have to make a motion, and we seconded it, for them to have each 10 minutes to state their case and present you evidence.
Very good.
Okay?
Yeah.
All right. Any other discussion? All in favor, say aye and raise your hand.
Aye.
Ayes have it, motion carries. There's a lot to unpack at this present time. We have a legal matter, so I'm going to defer to counsel at this time to talk.
All right, thank you, Mayor. I understand, just as a procedural matter, before we get started with resuming the hearing, that there is an objection based on a conflict of interest. If you made that objection, can you please step up to the podium?
Yes, sir.
Yeah, can you just reintroduce yourself, please?
My name is Steve Demeter. I own the property across from the Pineborough property that this hearing is about.
Good afternoon, Mr. Demeter. So we did receive by email a copy of a document. It's entitled Proposal for the Resolution of Conflict of Interest. Is that the document that you submitted?
Yes, sir.
And
The
I
reason-
believe, I apologize, go ahead.
May I comment? The reason I sent that is, did not know what the procedure for this hearing would be, didn't know a chance that they opportunity to present that, so that's why I forwarded it to the council.
I understand. And just for a procedural matter, there were 2 emails, I believe, attached to that document as well?
There were email copies of things that I had received from Freedom of Information Act.
Okay, and was a copy of that provided to the applicant? Do you know?
I do not know. I made the request.
That's okay, and I'm not
Yeah.
pointing a finger at you or anything. Okay, so here's what I think is probably the fairest thing to do, is I assume that you want to submit that into the record, your objection.
I plan to.
Okay, so you would need to obviously present that to council for the mayor's consideration to accept, obviously subject to objection. And then I assume that the applicant and their attorney are going to want an opportunity, at least a few minutes, to read what that is before we get into you presenting your argument and them presenting their rebuttal on that issue. Not the rest of this hearing, just that issue.
That's
Okay?
the issue that I present.
Okay, so at this time, would you like to go ahead and present your objection into the record?
Yes, sir. I've already given my copies to the clerk for distribution and one for evidence.
Okay, so we will need a copy of that. Do we have an extra copy, Madam Clerk?
I think I gave her 7 copies.
Okay. Okay, so I think at this time, before that is considered by the mayor, we would need to know if there's any objection by the applicant. So why don't you go ahead and retain a copy and take a few minutes to study that?
May I sit, sir?
You certainly
Yes.
may. Thank you. So, Mr. Mayor, if we may, maybe just stand at ease for a couple minutes.
Okay.
So what happened was, when we went out there to test this PSI, it was on, but y'all live so close to, and this is something you may want to look at too, make sure your PRV is in the yard. Because when you turn the plants on, the water plant, it shoots the pressure up and goes over some of those hills. And he's so close that it shoots pressure up too much. That's what was causing the problem. We didn't make mistakes per se, because when we went out there, it was no issue. It's just Public Works tested the water meter, not the water treatment plant. So, so that's why, but we got them squared away and, for your pressure reducing valve is PRV. It should be closer to the meter. Most people, a lot of construction guys get lazy and they put it underneath the house. But it only protects behind it. It should be out in the road. Okay, it should have its own little box. Just on the back side of the mirror. One day when you, one day if you're at home, whatever, come out and look. Not a big deal.
Mr. Ferguson, have you finished reviewing?
As good as I can, there's a lot of pages here, and I would hate to see us run over time on it. Russell Ferguson, I represent the applicant. You know, I understand there's broad range of evidence rules in here for special use hearings. We'd object to it. It's, on a quick review of it, it seems to be a lot about the purchase of the property, which is not what we're here to talk about today. It's not relevant to the special use hearing and what we're asking, what the applicant's applied for. So we'd object on that. I just don't think it's the appropriate venue for this conversation on it. We didn't receive notice of this in a timely manner. I'm reading this for the first time. You know, it's roughly some of the things were mentioned in the last hearing. And again, it's not really on the subject matter of this hearing, so it's tough to get into addressing that. There does appear to be a lot of conjecture in here. Usually the special use permit would be limited to factual evidence and testimony of experts and those sort of things, and there's some content in here that seems to be very opinion-driven and summary in nature, and then specifically on that, to the extent it's incorrectly referring to contracts that aren't in existence and not applicable here, I don't think it's relevant to the conversation. I think it could be a little bit misleading in where we're at today.
Okay.
Would love the opportunity to speak on the substance of it if we get there. Thank you.
Sure, thank you. All right, so, Mayor, obviously, we have a motion essentially noting an objection based on conflict of interest. We have an objection to the motion that's been presented, and so now you'll have an opportunity based on those objections to decide whether or not to sustain or overrule. So that is your decision. Once that decision's made, if you elect to allow the motion to go forward, then we'll hear from both sides as to the substance of the motion itself. Now, if you sustain the motion that's been made based on relevance,
Yep.
then the motion does not go forward. If you overrule, then the motion goes forward.
A lot to unpack. this time, the objection is overruled.
Okay, so with that being said, then we'll go ahead and hear both sides on the issue of conflict. Mr. Demeter, am I saying that right? Demeter. Since it's your motion, you'll be heard first. This will, Madam Clerk, this will not apply towards the 10 minutes for each side.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor, council members. Thank you for the time to address you. I have submitted a proposal for the resolution of this conflict of interest question that has been raised. And I'd like to begin by giving a definition, which is fact, not made up, that says a conflict of interest is a situation in which a person or organization, and it's underlined, is involved in multiple interests, financial or otherwise, and serving one interest could involve working against another. Typically, this relates to situations in which the personal interest of an individual or organization, underlined, might adversely affect the duty owed to make decisions for the benefit of a third party. The interest is commitment, obligation, duty, or goal associated with a specific social role or practice. By definition, a conflict of interest occurs if within a particular decision-making context, an individual, could be an organization, is subject to the two coexisting interests that are in direct conflict with each other. The two interests are you own the property and you're making a decision about the property, which is a reason that the buyer hasn't purchased the property at this time. Okay? I'd like to submit the following information. There is a purchase agreement, and the town has a copy of it. An amendment to that purchase agreement, which also the town has a copy of. The email exchanges of June 4th and 5th between individuals Tom Johnson, Ashley Young, Bo Waltrell, and copies were sent to Brad Hatfield, Kevin Brown, Jessica Lale, Todd Erms regarding the Pine Bur purchase, and they are attached. When we look at the email exchange of October the 2nd, all the way back through September the 11th, they're between Russell Ferguson, Tim Swanson, with copies to Todd Erms, Jessica Lale, Kevin Brown. This is regarding the 800 Pine Bur special use permit presentation and source for housing data. The definition of conflict is as you see above. From the evidence submitted, there is an attempt to obscure the town council's conflict of interest by technically removing from the first proposed contract to purchase the property and amending the language from the contract to remove the contingency that the special use permit be approved in order for the sale to go through from the contract. However, in fact, the conflict of interest was perpetuated in the full knowledge of the town attorney because clearly the only reason the extension of the due diligence period was granted until January the 15th was to give more time for the town council to have a hearing on the special use permits. In other words, the only reason the buyer asked for the extension of the due diligence period was to allow more time for the town council to conduct a hearing on the special use permit with the explicit conditional language removed from the contract. Now to say that this charade has cured the conflict of interest is ridiculous. The further questions might need to be asked of the buyer. If answered truthfully, the answers may further support the conflict of interest issue. The buyer has had 6 months to conduct their due diligence of the Pine Bur property. Despite my request, the town manager's office has not provided me with any information about what the buyers did during this due diligence conflict of interest except to ask for an extension of the due diligence period. And when I mention that is, I asked how to have access to the Pine Bur property and did not receive an answer, but I did receive other information that I made the request for. Questions for the buyer. What has the buyer done during the examination period? What have they done? Studies. What? What is left to be done during the examination period? Remember, the examination period began on or about June the 25th and ends on January the 15th, which is approximately 10 days from now. When given the choice between using the rules for special use permit, why did they prefer as indicated in emails and stuff we've received, why do they prefer to use the old rules rather than the new ones that were to go in effect on January the 1st, and that the town council will be hearing a presentation at its regular meeting this evening? On January the 15th, is the buyer prepared to immediately move forward with the purchase of the property from the town of Valdez, irrespective on whether a special use permit is approved or not? Why or why not? So, with that information, I submit the following proposal and resolution. And this is in an attempt to do what I think is not only best for the neighborhood, best for the town council, and best for the citizens of Valdez. In an effort to resolve the conflict of issue regarding the special use permit, the following proposal is offered for resolution of this very specific issue. That prior to any further hearing, deliberation, and decision by the town council regarding the granting of a special use permit, because of the conflict of interest issue, a written opinion regarding the conflict of interest be obtained from the local government commission, the League of Municipalities, and UNC School of Government. That the conflict of interest be investigated by these independent agencies and their counsel, and not any attorney involved with this current special use application. All this is done to ensure openness for those not only here at this meeting, but citizens who are looking at this, whatever. That these agencies investigate and interview all parties involved and review all evidence presented in the quasi-public hearing regarding the conflict of interest to the town of Valdez and the owner of the Pineborough property, including any financial benefits generated to the town resulting from their conflicts of interest. That no extension of the examination period be granted for this sale in the future. That if such written opinion from the local government commission, League of Municipalities, and the UNC School of Government be that a conflict of interest did and does exist, the local government commission shall prepare guidelines and a policy for adoption by the town council, so any further questioning of a conflict of interest in similar situations moving forward be resolved by the following guidelines and policy of the local government commission. In my opinion, inaction on this proposed resolution to the conflict of interest question by the town council will only strengthen the case that a fair and independent decision cannot be made by the town council. That is my proposal. You have the attached documents, or have the ability to get those attached documents in reference.
Thank you. Mr. Robertson?
Again, I'm reading this for the first time in the last 5 minutes, so we're a little bit up against it. I'm trying to understand the concept. I'm having trouble following what the substance of the objection is. It seems to start with an assumption that there is some conflict here. There's no conflict here. You guys are the town council. You make decisions for the town. That's the way it works. North Carolina General Statute sets out a very verbose and lengthy code of laws about how to apply to land use in North Carolina and how to do special event hearings. None of what I just heard presented is involved in that and tends to rewrite that code. I love the School of Government. I have friends that work there. They're awesome, and I'm sure they would provide something instructive. I can provide the same from my experience. All over this county and this state, cities and municipalities own property, and they have to regulate it because they are the regulatory authority for planning, for land use, for code enforcement, for law enforcement, and all of these things. Those are not conflicts. Those are the duties of the state. It is part of your essential function to deal with property. The special event hearing is about the use of this property that would stay with the land. It's not about the purchase of the property. But under the standard that I just heard admitted, even if I were to accept the idea that there is a conflict, because there's not a conflict for any of you, to my knowledge, because we went through that twice now at the 2 openings of these hearings. To the extent that we take all those assumptions going, then what is that standard anyways, right? So I'm going all the way down. I'll just assume that any of that is right. What is the standard for how this town will deal with property? Because I didn't hear that. What I heard was anytime there's a discussion about land use, we're going to wait however many months and delay the petitioner. I do think the applicant has rights here under the special event hearing. We've followed the rules. We've made a proper application. It has actually been supported by the planning department and the regional planning authority that's utilized by the town. So I'm just not really sure how the city would deal with any of the property that they own under this standard, where we assume a conflict exists because the city's there. That's, literally the elected duty is to determine and make rulings about what to do with town property. So, I guess just in sum, I'm not sure we're going totally open to discussing it. I didn't hear a standard that's workable, that has logical sense. I didn't hear any facts that lead to a determination that there is a conflict of interest. Regardless of all the property stuff, which I'm not even gonna get into, because despite my name being mentioned in a couple of thank you emails that's been provided to you, I wasn't a part of that negotiation. If you guys wanna ask more questions about it, I'm sure we can try to address them. Mr. Hatfield is here with me from the applicant. We'd be happy to answer those questions, but I will say I do this predominant part of my work is doing land use and working with towns and cities and planning departments to do these things. And purchasers of commercial property need to know what they can do with property before they buy it. That's the way it works. There's just not a universe in which people speculatively do those things. And as to due diligence, you guys have seen a site plan. These are stamped by engineers. There's been a fair amount of work and planning that have gone into this, and this will be my third visit to this chamber. So we have been working at it, and we'd very much like to obtain this, a positive result in the hearing that's before the board. Thank you very much.
Okay. So, Mayor, I think now we turn it back over to you. We will need, I would suggest that versus the mayor making a decision on this conflict, since it relates to the entire body, that we have a vote as a body. So the way we'll treat this is there is currently a motion essentially to disqualify this body from making a decision at this hearing based on a conflict of interest. So we would need to make a decision as to whether or not that motion to disqualify you will be sustained or overruled. Okay, so the first step will be for someone on this body to make a motion to either sustain, in other words, to find there is a conflict, or to overrule, which means there is not a conflict. Then we will need a second and a vote. Does anyone? You may not at this point. Does anybody have any questions as to what I just explained?
One more time.
Yeah, that's okay.
Okay.
So we've got a motion to disqualify. Someone has made a motion saying you all as a body have a conflict of interest. We either need a motion from you all to sustain it. Sustaining means that you will find there is a conflict of interest. To overrule means you would find there is not a conflict of interest. So you either need a motion to sustain or to overrule, and then we'll have a second and a vote. Is everyone track? Okay, it's your turn. We can't move forward with the hearing until this is finalized.
And so if there is a conflict, if it were to go conflict of interest, it would then go to, we have a vote tonight about the UDO. Is that what I was hearing?
No,
And
the-
then
the-
it goes
the-
to the planning board?
Yeah, so that, the UDO that was mentioned, has nothing, that's on your other agenda.
Yes.
Yeah, nothing to do with this. If a conflict is found, then this body can no longer proceed with the hearing, so this matter would be over.
Okay.
Yep.
And it then would move to the planning board or just be nothing?
It would be over.
Over, okay.
I just don't quite understand what conflict of interest means, but exactly what is a conflict of interest in this case? I don't know that I totally understand what that is.
Yeah, and I don't necessarily want to recharacterize their arguments,
Right,
because I don't want that to become an issue.
right.
Okay, essentially, the way I understand what has been said is the argument against council proceeding is that you both own the property and you're making a decision based on the special use permit.
Okay,
That-
so that's the conflict
And
of
the
interest.
argument against it is, there always is the possibility that you're gonna own property and as a governing body, have to make a decision on the special use permit,
Right,
okay?
okay.
I make a motion that we overrule the objection. I think that's right.
Yep, so just to clarify, what that would mean is overrule, meaning that you are saying that your motion is that there is no conflict of interest. No conflict of interest is what you just said.
said
Okay,
yes.
yeah, so we'll need a second
Is there
and then a vote.
Second.
discussion?
I mean, maybe it's okay for me to say, but I think when your answer to Councilman Ogle, there's always gonna be that. And I mean, that's what our job is, to make a decision. So I don't know how you get around that, and that's why I think you proceed with it.
Any other comments? The motion on, is to overrule, and there's no conflict. So at this time, show of hands, all in favor, raise your hand and say aye.
Aye.
Motion carries.
All right, so, Mayor, now you can proceed with the hearing. I assume you'll want to start with the proponents and give them their 10 minutes and then move to the
That
opponents.
is correct.
Russell Ferguson, again, here for the applicant. We did provide a presentation in the discussion at the last hearing. As we carried on, we came to got some feedback from the community in talking about parking, and we offered up the ability to add a condition, as the council is allowed to add conditions specifically to this special use. And the motion was made, I believe, by Councilmember Lohman to continue it, to allow time for doing that. I would like to submit for a record a revised site plan that reflects the addition of guest parking area. It's approximate. Move to submit that to the record without objection.
Any objections? Okay. That will be entered as Exhibit 6. 7.
Yeah, I've got paper coming, and I'm gonna put it on the board. Thanks up here, excuse me one second. Tell me that's a touchscreen. All right. So, I will remind you that I think we talked about the standard for this meeting being that it does not do negative things for the community, create safety hazards and so on. I would again assert that it doesn't create those problems as set forth in the ordinance, and go further and say that this project as a residential development for market housing is a benefit to the community. That was where we left with our presentation. I wanted to highlight these notes. If you'll see on the site plan in front of you, you'll notice to the right of the housing area, you have a little demarcation of where we believe the topography will allow for some guest parking. And then an area where the approximate access to the road would be in alignment with the existing street, so that that would be safety and likely to pass through permitting. Remind everyone that this will have to go through permitting and building approvals and many more detailed standards before it's built, that this is a general change. We have tried to keep it in the same small area of this larger property, following forward the same premise that we are trying to do as little here and do what is feasible to add these up to 20 units here. And I wanted to point out these notes real carefully to make sure that you guys see that there were a few changes in here, and had a little trouble with engineers. We changed the wording to say up to 20 units. That was always the implied intention of what we were doing here. It might get smaller than 20 units. So we just changed that to clarify that. The requirement for the parking spaces in the front for each unit is still there. The height is still there. And then we changed what the lot coverage will be to accommodate for the addition of the parking. And we removed, and changed it to putting approximately on the land disturbance, because we have a situation where we're not exactly sure how much land will be disturbed until you get in there and do the grading work. I did want to we do have one speaker here that I think would need to be sworn in. This is Jennifer Hudson, that would speak on behalf of the petitioner, because we had some questions about property management when we were here last, and we did not have someone to speak on that. We have Ms. Hudson, who is property manager of the applicant's other multifamily applications.
Come forward to be sworn in, please.
Do you affirm that the evidence you give during this hearing is the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth?
I do. Mayor, council, thank you. My name is Jennifer Hudson. I live at 412 Fayette Street in Valdez. I'm a realtor, a property manager, chief relationship officer for Breeden Real Estate. I would be responsible for managing the ongoing management of this development if it is approved. So tonight I'm speaking in favor of the application and will present my testimony in this expert capacity with supporting evidence to support the town's special use permit 9-3147. Our firm manages about 1,000 doors, including single-family homes, townhomes, multifamily communities, and commercial properties in Burke and 10 other surrounding counties, with established operational standards and applicant screening criteria that is related to safety, health, and maintenance. The key to proper management starts with finding excellent tenants. I'd like to present Exhibit A. I'd like to submit for the record Exhibit A, please.
Are there any objections?
Just for the record, did we say A as an apple or 8?
A.
A?
Hey, it'll be 8.
We are on number 8? Can
Number
we
eight.
redesignate
We can
it as 8?
change it to 8,
Just for
yes.
each
Change it.
simplicity
Sure.
for us, okay, thank you.
Sure.
That was fine.
So, Exhibit 8 is basically a summary of our applicant screening criteria. So some key items to note here, which are very important, are income requirements along with verification of that income, credit score standards, criminal background checks, rental history verification, and eviction and rental collections history. We take every precaution that is legally available to us to make sure we place excellent tenants in our properties, not just this one, but all properties. Once tenants are placed, our focus switches to compliance. So I'd like to present Exhibit 9 for the record.
Any objections? Received.
This also is a summary of our management standards and services. It's not complete, it's just a brief summary for tonight's presentation. These include, but are not limited to, routine weekly external inspections for our multifamily communities, a 24-hour emergency maintenance response, enforcement of occupancy limits, enforced exterior standards, identification of lease violations and corrective actions and/or penalties, and documented procedures for addressing habitability concerns. These items help reduce deterioration of the property, protect adjacent properties and public infrastructure, and help to maintain a sound and peaceful community. We also currently manage 2 multifamily properties right now in Valdez, along with numerous duplexes, other single-family residences. So I'd just like to point out, if we could take a field trip, I would submit it as evidence, but we can't. So I'd just like to point out these 2 prominent communities that you guys drive by all the time. Rock Creek Apartments, which were revitalized by one of these investors, and the Abbey on Church Street. A simple drive-by of these will indicate our ability to manage these properties professionally and successfully. And based on our experience managing similar developments, this type of use does not create an increased burden on public services beyond the typical residential use when operated under professional management. Thank you for the opportunity to present these.
Thank you.
And I do just want to characterize that we wanted to address some of the concerns that came up in discussion in the last hearing. So it's mostly about the security concerns and the other issues with density being introduced to the lot. Those are not, necessarily property managers have to have the ability to amend their rules as they go on to do it. So that's why we did it in the summary form. So again, I think in summation to this, I think it's a good project. It brings 20 units at market rate to Valdez. I think it established earlier, if you guys can remember back that far, it's been a minute. A lot of holidays between then and now, that there is a housing shortage. There's a housing shortage for fair market rental generally across the whole country, the state of North Carolina and this county. And we think it adds value. And I think that some of the concerns, just as I said, were the standard. I don't think we're doing harm here. I think really what we're talking about is how much good does this bring to the community. I also point out in the terms of security, we talked about this a little bit in the last hearing, but generally speaking, large vacant parcels are not great for security. Having residents, having neighbors that live there and care about their belongings and their property is a really good way to have a neighborhood have that kind of sense of security and belonging. You're more likely to have concerns when you don't have anybody that knows who you are across the street would be my point on that. I want to thank you all for all your time, and we're here to answer any more questions that may come up in discussion and ask you to approve of the special use permit tonight. Thank you.
Thank you, thank you. Council, do you have any questions of the applicant? Okay, seeing none.
You want to provide any opposing parties?
And that's exactly what it says the next thing. Opposing parties, do you have any comments?
Yes, we have not received a copy of what was distributed. I asked for that earlier, but we also have time to look at that, so we can prepare comments.
Absolutely.
Also, the closing comments of the attorney did not contain only facts, it was opinions based upon some of the things that they have said as well.
Noted.
Okay, so I think the best thing to do is momentarily, and let me just clarify one thing for the record. I think what the mayor was asking is, instead of your opposition to his argument, is do you have any, as a party, does anyone have any questions for the applicant based on the evidence that was just presented?
We haven't seen it and had a chance to look at it.
Okay, so I understand. So here's what we'll do. If you have extra copies,
Oh,
If
I'm
you-
giving him my copies.
so let's do the same thing we did earlier and just take, a few minutes and give him an opportunity to review that.
That's a full copy.
You want one? You want a copy? They need a copy as well, so they can see. I'd like to see that.
So just for clarity, the only people that can ask questions of the applicant are parties to the proceeding. And so you have to have standing to be a party, which I think, Mr. Demeter, you said that you live next to this property, so you would have standing. He owns,
He owns the
Property across from.
yeah, so he would have standing. But anyone else, if you intend to ask questions, I'll probably have some questions for you first about whether or not you have standing, okay? Also, bear in mind that we do have another meeting starting at 6, so we're only gonna give a few minutes for review on this.
May I ask, here, you can come forward. I'll-
Come forward, please, if you would, please.
Yes.
Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor, council members, for this. Appreciate the opportunity to look at this and address. The solution that is being presented is there's going to be an adjacent parking area to these but it doesn't look like it's connected or a way that these individuals can actually use that instead of the driveway. It's multiple entranceways onto Pineborough instead of a parking lot and one entrance onto Pineborough, correct? If I'm reading this correctly.
That's my answer to the.
Sure.
I want to make sure I understand it, that's all.
Yes, sir, that's correct. It is approximate and it is in general. We needed to add it because of the parameters of the special use permit. We intend to follow through city code and permitting to see exactly how this works out. We don't have the minor details on this project filled out. So, there's a necessary amount of room that's needed to get utility easements, to find out where we can dig, to find out what can be graded, and to get this project built together, and then that will be coming back through the town's review process, like the staff. So, but in short, yes, the answer is this area marketed as parking would be an additional overflow parking. Each of these driveways will have multiple parking spaces.
Okay. And will there be sidewalks connecting to this location? Or an entrance from that parking lot? Where will the entrance be on the parking lot?
There could be, the entrance will be generally located here, again, topo, underground stuff, we have to figure it out and work with the road authorities to make sure that the alignment is approved. We're never able to say that till we get full review of CDOT or VDOT.
Okay. All right. That's all I see at this time. Thank you.
So, yes, please.
All right, so just for clarification, that was just cross-examination of the applicant's case, their final 10 minutes. And so now we'll have an opportunity for anyone who wants to speak in opposition of the applicant, they'll have that 10-minute block that they can use. Is there anyone that would like to speak in opposition? Ma'am, you can come up. They'll have 10 minutes total. She's just a witness. Just a
Marie Cole. I live at 705 Burtis Street in Valdez for the last 31 years, and I use Pineborough Avenue 3 to 4 times a week, going both directions. That's where I'm probably asking for clarification. So we are still going to dump 21 driveways onto Pineborough, like 10 feet, 30 feet, 10 feet, 30 feet, 10 feet, 30 feet, all of the way to that dangerous corner. That's my question, or am I misreading that?
That's okay. So, ma'am, are you an adjoining property owner?
I am not an adjoining property owner, I'm only a user of the street.
I understand. So with this proceeding, in order to ask questions of the other side, you have to have standing, so which means you have to you have to own property that adjoins. So what you can do is you can present evidence if you have anything you want council to consider.
Their picture, that is the only evidence I have, is that their picture still shows all the driveways separately entering on the street, and I may be misinterpreting it.
Okay, thank you.
But I'm not misinterpreting it, that is the number one safety hazard. And why for one person, we'll find a new way to get to the interstate.
Thank you. All right, is there anyone else who wants to speak in opposition? Yes, ma'am.
Come forward. Before, you'll need to get sworn in, Ms. Stevens.
Do you affirm that the evidence you give during this hearing is the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth?
Okay, now I want to ask a question. My name is
Would you
Cindy-
state your name, please?
Cindy Stevens, and I live at 505 Pineborough Avenue Southeast. So our property is going to be directly across from the proposed townhomes.
Okay, thank you.
At the last meeting, when people stood up, they talked about positives and negatives. I'm assuming that's what you want me to speak about?
This is your opportunity to present whatever you'd like to council.
Okay.
Yes, ma'am.
All right. So, first of all, for the positives, I do see a positives for the townhomes because they are market rate. The folks who would be living there would be paying, for example, car taxes. They would be shopping locally, small businesses. They would eat fast food, which would be on like a lower tier. They would also eat at our other restaurants, would be a mid-tier, AutoZone, car maintenance, those kinds of things. So there is a benefit for the townhomes. For the negatives, what I heard mostly about at the last meeting was about safety. My study is longitudinal. I have lived there 34 years. So that is my study. I've lived there 34 years. I have a problem with cars backing out and onto Pineburg. There, for example, UPS, FedEx, and the US Post Office all come into my driveway, turn around so that they can pull into the Pineburg, not backing out. Also, I had a question about the study. I don't know if that would be them. I wondered if the study was like a one-year data set, or was it like a multiple-year data set?
Okay, just for clarification, which study are you referring to?
That would be the study of the Pineburg going out and into Pineburg.
The traffic study?
Traffic study.
I think that was prepared by staff, if I'm not mistaken, so they can potentially speak to that, but let's go ahead and let you finish whatever questions you have, and then we'll have them address
I wondered if it was
that.
just like the one-year data points, or was it multiple?
Okay, we'll have them speak to that.
Okay, and who did the analysis? You just answered that question, right? It
Yeah,
was
so
done-
staff presented it to council at the
Okay.
last meeting.
My question is, can there be a compromise here with the parking so that it can be a little bit safer coming out into Pineburg? The other thing I thought about is, I looked at all the, not necessarily townhomes, but like apartments, and none of them have parking going backwards to me, where you're going forward. Like Pineburg Apartments, just down from where this is. Pineburg Apartments, Lydia Avenue, Rora, Tron, Pine Crossing, The Meadows, the Village Apartments, Agape. None of those places have you going backwards. They have you going toward the road, not backwards from the road. Did you have a question? Who answered that question? I thought they were gonna answer a question that I had about the study.
They are, so are you finished?
Yes.
Then we'll,
I mean, my list would have gone longer, but there's a reason why none of these other places are not wanting to come backwards like you guys want. And I think it is safety.
Okay,
I think that's the main issue.
thank you. Madam Clerk, before we're gonna get a chance, where are we on time for opposition?
I'm finished.
I just
You're
wanna see if
finished.
there's enough time for anyone else
4 minutes and 30 seconds.
4 minutes.
left.
Has passed, so they have.
Okay, okay.
Or 5.5 left.
All right, you are finished, and I understand we have a question that you want addressed, and so we'll have staff speak to that momentarily.
Okay.
Is there anyone else on the opposition that wants to speak in the last few minutes? And we're gonna have to make this quick. Not questions or comments, this is just the opposition side to present. Okay, then, what I'd like to do is have staff speak to the question about the traffic study, if you can.
For the traffic study, we used ITE, which is the Institute of Transportation Engineers, generation per dwelling unit, the daily trip rate. This is average annual data. A rolling time frame measured 365 days in the past from the date the data was pulled. It's pulled from vehicle probe data, which is widely available and used across the transportation planning field. And the capacity standards that were also a part of this right here were prepared by NCDOT.
Okay, thank you. All right, so, Mayor, Council, we have essentially, I think, allowed everyone to speak who wanted to speak for and in opposition. We are not going to get back into a rebuttal, rebuttal on this today. I don't think we have time. So before we the mayor closes this hearing, however, now is the opportunity, if you, as council members, have any questions about the evidence that you've heard. This is not where you're going to talk and make your decision, but this is your opportunity, if you have questions, to ask whoever it is that you have a question of your question, okay? So at this time, before the mayor closes this hearing, does anyone have any questions regarding any of the evidence that's been presented?
All right, seeing none, this quasi judicial hearing is closed. Council, I will entertain a motion on your decision.
Council, just as a reminder, the motion, just in case you have curiosities as to how that would be phrased, and we'll make it very simple. It'll either be a motion to approve the special use permit or a motion to deny the special use permit. You'll need a motion, you'll need a second, and then at that point, the mayor will invite you to have discussion.
Council, I'll entertain a motion.
I make a motion to approve the special use permit.
Second.
We have a second. Discussion?
All right, so council, I'm going to encourage you to talk here. You've got 8 minutes, and this is the important part. So I'm going to need you all to evaluate what you've heard and just talk about it amongst yourselves as to why you are in favor of issuance of this special use permit. I will bring your attention back to the standard. So your code of ordinances sets forth the standard as this. It says a special use permit, it shall be granted if it will not adversely affect the health or safety of persons residing or working in the neighborhood of the proposed use, and will not be detrimental to the public welfare or injurious to property or public improvements in the neighborhood. Okay, so that is the standard by which you're evaluating this. You've heard a lot of information on the development ideas, you've heard information on the use, you've heard information on traffic impacts, safety concerns, and so you just need to talk about what you've heard and how it fits with that standard.
I think back in December, I'd mentioned the fact about parking and the driveways and them connecting to Pine Bur individually. I've also heard that from Ms. Stevens and Mr. Demmer tonight, and I think that's a real concern that all of us should have. And could there be a compromise, a different drawing to get that parking where it comes directly off of Pine Bur, and you go to one entrance and park that way. Now, I don't know if that's feasible, but that's a big thing that I'm hearing tonight, both from Mr. Demmer and Ms. Stevens, is the parking and how the parking is going to dump into Pine Bur individually, or will it go around with one entrance, one exit? I think that's a concern. Then you talk about the safety of our citizens. I think that's something we've really got to consider, is that is a safety for our citizens. I know Ms. Stevens just said UPS, FedEx, Postal, you know, they're backing out of her driveway, somebody's backing out. You're looking for an accident. There's no question about that. Also, you've got a big curve there coming up from Eldred that will be going west on Pine Bur. Now, that big curve, you know, that is also a concern. That curve's been there since I was a boy. I guess it's been there forever. I don't know. So I think that's what I'm hearing from our community in opposition to this. I'm for 100% for building these condominiums, these apartments. I think we need the rental space here in Valdez. I don't think there's any doubt about that. Could there be a compromise on the parking and it emptying directly into Pineborough? I think that's something that all of us.
So let me redirect the conversation a little bit. We can't talk about compromises now. We just have to decide whether or not they've met the criteria or not met the criteria for a special use. The criteria deals primarily with safety. You've heard a lot of information on that, and so I want to keep our conversation on that issue in light of the fact that we have a motion and a second to approve the special use permit.
Okay.
And you have 4 minutes until your next meeting.
Just because I have no idea how this works. Does the NCDOT come in after they've put this in and evaluate the area and say, you need speed bumps, you need,
Yeah, so the time for asking questions is over too.
oh, so I was like, I was like, how does that work?
You've heard analysis
Okay.
about traffic.
Okay, yes.
Traffic impacts and things of that nature. I think you've heard that from your staff report. So that might bear into what
Okay.
you're trying to work through there.
I think we can conclude that the application was complete and thorough from the staff and from the applicant. I think that we have heard comments from, and concerns from citizens. I think that some of those are emotionally driven, which I understand. I don't think all of these cars that we're concerned about are gonna be coming out of a driveway at the very same time of every day that are gonna pose significant risk. So that's where I would say that the safety concern has been addressed through the facts and the evidence that we have had from the experts in that area that's been presented from staff and the applicant. And I don't see that we will adversely affect the health and safety of that area by moving forward with this.
Okay, at this time, I'll call for a vote. All in favor for approving this special use permit, raise your right hand and say aye.
Aye.
All right, motion carries. Thank you. Application is approved. I extend a thank you to all who were present, and I'll now ask for a motion to adjourn.
Motion to adjourn.
Second. Meeting is adjourned. Thank you.